Hello and welcome to my podcast. My name is Meg. I am the owner and yarn dyer behind Megs Co. And I am so excited to sit down with you for a little bit to chat about yarn dyeing, yarn projects, visiting Rhinebeck, and all of the things that I have been up to, I think, in the past month since I have last checked in. So let's get cozy. So I'm officially back from attending the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival, and I wanted to share about my experience being a full tourist this year and not vending, which was so amazing, so much fun. I'm really glad that I got to enjoy the festival as an event. It was so much fun. I loved just being able to hang out with just a wide open schedule and really being able to enjoy and attend all the events and not have to work. It was such a different experience, and I'm so grateful to have been able to do that this year, especially because the weather was so perfect. Like, you could not have asked for a better fall weekend. But yeah, so we will dive into all of that. I made a lot of purchases, and so I wanted to share some of the wonderful things that came home with me. I met so many incredible vendors, shopped from some of my favorites, and for the past couple weeks, I have been putting together a list of projects that I wanted to make. And because I want to make sure that I'm actually going to use the purchases that I made. So it's been really important for me to not just take what I bought and shove it in a closet and woohoo, that was fun. I want to actually use what I purchased. So I've been making a list of plans. And so I wanted to share not just what I bought, but what am I planning to make, maybe as like a little bit of an accountability. So hopefully over the next year, some of these projects should be popping up on this podcast. And if they're not, call me out, because I really need to be working through my stash a little bit more. I know it's hard. Being a yarn dyer, I'm working with my own yarn a lot. I love my own yarn. I'm obsessed with it. And I'm also making a lot of my own shop samples. So sometimes it is hard to, find that true time where I'm not making product for my shop. But I definitely want to start using up some of my goodies. Okay, so let's dive in. First and foremost, let's talk about my Rhinebeck sweater, because I have a finished object to share with you. And that is my Rhinebeck sweater. I am so excited that I was able to finish this is the Maxine Sweater by Laura Penrose. I talked about this pretty in-depthly in my last podcast because it was still a work in progress at that point. I think I had only just finished the yoke. I can't remember if I had even separated for the sleeves yet or not, but yeah, so I feel like it was cutting it a little close. I finished it maybe 4 or 5 days before I left, so yeah, still plenty of time, I guess, depending on how you look at it, but I was so excited that I finished it and I was able to wear it. So it was just so exciting, especially just because this yarn just means so much to me, it being my Empire Estate, which is my New York State sourced and spun yarn. So this project to get this yarn, it was an entire year in the making. So it was really wonderful just to be able to knit something so beautiful and meaningful for my first big Empire Estate project, and then I could wear it to the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival, which just seemed like New York on New York on New York, and so it was wonderful. So yes, finished object. It fits so perfectly. I think I got a little lucky on the fit because I actually measured my gauge after. So this was a test knit, so that is why I measured my gauge afterwards. and it was way off. I don't know what happened between my swatch and my final garment, but my gauge tightened up quite a bit from my swatch to my finished piece. So my finished gauge is, I have about 2 stitches more than my swatch and what the pattern calls for. So I do think that's why it came out a lot more fitted. If you've seen pictures online of this, it is a little bit, it's meant to have a lot more positive ease, and it is meant to be a much more fitted, relaxed garment. Honestly, or not a fitted garment, it's meant to be more relaxed rather than a fitted garment. But honestly, I prefer more structured, fitted sweaters and garments. I think that they just are more comfortable. I just like the style a little bit better. I like the way that they fit and wear, and they're more, to me, they're a little bit more comfortable. So it's a very, very, very happy accident for me. No complaints here. And like I said, it fits like a glove. I was very studious. This was a test knit. So I was very studious, and I was constantly trying this on and making little micro adjustments as I needed to. So I really was knitting this to my size. And especially because like this yarn was important to me, and I really wanted to have kind of a show-stopping piece for New York State and wool. So I did spend a lot of time kind of carefully knitting this instead of just kind of blasting through it. Like sometimes I can be a little lazy, I'm not gonna lie, and I will just blast through projects like, oh, whatever, it'll fit fine. And then I'm shocked that it doesn't. But I feel like I did all the things that the pattern tells you to do that we ignore. I gauge swatched. I blocked my gauge swatch. I tried it on multiple times throughout the way, and I did steam block it. I steam blocked my yoke to try it on, just to ensure that that it was fitting how it would fit, like post blocking. So I did spend a lot of time to ensure the proper fit, and I'm glad that I did, because it fits so wonderfully. So I used my own yarn. Like I said, I used my Empire Estate yarn. This is a non-superwash DK weight yarn. It is a New York State sourced Rambouillet. It's sourced from a single farm. It was spun at Battenkill. It's a really nice yarn. It's very soft, but it definitely still has that bit of like rustic hand to it. I love that you can still see, here you can see it a lot better on a darker one. I love that it still has like little bits of like the hay and vegetation in it. I mean, you can tell that this came from the farm. I absolutely love it. So you get to kind of pick those little bits out as you go. But yeah, it's definitely very soft, very woolly, very hardy. And how it took to color work is just exceptional. This yarn and color work are meant to be, the stitches just stick together like Velcro, and as you can see, it's just absolutely beautiful. So the colors that I used Ontario, which is a very blue leaning teal. And then I used pumpkin spice. This is a very kind of rusty orange. Love pumpkin spice. I put this in so many colors. It's one of those colors that, because it's got a lot of those like warm rusty brown tones, like it goes with every color, because it kind of acts as your like brown neutral while still adding a really nice pop of color. I mean, like, look at it with orange. Look at it with, this is actually a new color that I was going to talk about later, but look at it with this like purpley color. That's really pretty. And so the other contrast color that I use, this is Red Haven. It's a very peach leaning pink, and I like how it added a nice bright pop to my contrast colors. And then for my main color, I used Bare Naked. So I thought that they looked so pretty together. So it's 3 colors for the contrast colors in the yoke and then your main color. The original pattern is written to have 5 contrast colors, and I wanted to share with you what my original kit looked like. This is what I had picked out, and I still think it looks incredible and really want to find a 5-color yoke that I can still use this kit with, because I do think it's incredible. So I had originally planned to add in Limelight. This is a very it's a very light, like if lime could be a pastel, it would be this color, but it's a warmish lime, very pretty. And then this is Empire. It's like a magenta-y red. So together, I liked that pop of color. I just thought it was so pretty. So I had originally planned for all of them to be in the yoke, and the color charts are charted for 5 colors, not 3. So there's these little like diamond sections that you start with, and they do call for 3 colors. And so the 3 colors that I happened to use for the first one were the 3 colors that ended up I just using throughout. And I just thought that they just looked so beautiful and elegant together, and just them. That kind of seeing like these very summery bright colors separated from like the autumnal colors, like even though together they are wonderful, I don't know, I felt like this was perfect on its own, and it was, because it's simple and elegant, I thought it would be enough that the color work and the beautiful motifs would just do the rest of the work. And I'm very happy with the decision I made, because these kind of quilted motifs are just, they're beautiful. So I'm very happy with the decision I made. Like I said, I would still love to do something with all of these colors. And technically I am. What am I saying? So that leads me into my first whip that I did want to share with you, because I did have a lot of leftovers. So I had probably about half of each of my contrast colors, plus I had already caked up the 2 colors that I ended up not using. And fortunately, right around the same time, Jamie Lomax, who is Pacific Knit Co on Instagram, she has these amazing doodle patterns, and she just released a book. It is called the Doodle Knit Directory. And if you see the scarf that's on the cover of this book, that is what I am knitting with all of my leftovers. So she had actually posted a free knit along to celebrate and kind of count down to the release of her book. So because I didn't even have the book yet, I popped into the knit along. So I got a bit of a head start before I got my book, which was awesome. So I got my first section complete with the first color. So I used Empire, and then I'm just using Bare Naked again for my contrast color. It's hard to tell, but there are a couple sections in here where there are some orange bits. So there is a little bit of pumpkin spice in here, but I really like how each block, and here I'll show you the picture again, how each block is like mostly going to be its own color. So the next block is going to be pumpkin, and then I think I'm doing Red Haven next, and then I feel like I really haven't decided from there. I might add in like a mustard color. I haven't decided exactly when I'm going to add in the Limelight. Like I think I might do like mustard and then Ontario and then Limelight. That could be fun, and then end with this. So I haven't figured out my entire color order yet, but I do know that pumpkin is next. So now that I have the book, I can work on that next chart section. So I feel like this is such a great way. I love the doodles. I feel like they're such a great way to use up your leftover skeins because, yeah, like I said, I have quite a bit of each contrast color left over. And like, this is such good yarn. I just don't want it like languishing in my stash. And this is going to be such a beautiful scarf. So excited to keep working on that. So yeah, I'm absolutely ecstatic with how this turned out. So much so that I'm definitely casting on another sweater with my Empire Estate. I have 2 picked out, and I'm still trying to narrow it down. Honestly, I'm going to knit both. I just have to decide which one I'm going to do first. So I'm trying to decide between the Halibut Sweater by Caitlin Hunter. It's this really cool, it's one that's been in my queue for a really long time, and it's just these fish on the yoke. I think it's the best. I kind of want to live my best fish core life. And again, I'm like, I can't decide on my colors because I feel like doing it in these 2 colors, the Limelight for the fish and Ontario for the body, would be very aquatic. But I'm also really interested in exploring this combination. So this is a brand new color. It's not even listed in my shop yet, but it is coming very, very soon. So this is going to be my my late fall, early winter addition to the Empire Estate line. So if you saw my Autumn in New York mini skein set, this is Midnight Fig. So this colorway released on my Autumn in New York mini skein set, and so I decided to bring it into my Empire Estate collection. And so I thought it looked absolutely wonderful with Red Haven. And that sweater's been on my mind for a while. And so when I saw these 2 colors together, that kind of popped in my mind. Like, it would just be very different and fish. So yes. The other sweater that I'm debating is the Lume by Sari Nordland. And that one's got kind of more of like a classical motif. It's got like flowers. It actually reminds me a lot of the flowers that were just in that scarf that I showed you. It's just really beautiful. And it's funny because like the sample is just black and white, and it's so elegant and beautiful. That part of me is like, that would just be stunning to just do black and white. It seems plain, but like, it's so elegant. Or you could do like the bare naked with that dark plum. So like, it's so dark, you kind of get that black and white effect, but at least there's a little bit of color. Or this is what I do. I just keep putting color combinations together, and then I cannot pick a project or a color combination. Or I was thinking these 2. Again, it's like the pink for the flowers, and then you've got that dark for the body, and I just thought it would be really fun. The Lume, though, is a much heavier gauge. It is technically a worsted weight pattern. So I looked at the gauge, and then I compared it to what I knit for this, and because I think I was about, I knit this on a US 6 or a 4mm for the main body stockinette, and I believe I was at like 22 stitches per 4 inches, and if I'm remembering correctly, the Lume was like 18 on that same needle size, or maybe it was like 18 on an 8. I gotta recheck my notes, but it just seemed like I would have to go up too far in gauge to where I don't know how the fabric would look, because I like the density of this fabric, and I guess I worry that like if I just use a giant needle, then you get like this weird unstructured fabric that's gonna lose its shape. I could just do kind of the same thing that I did for this, of knit it at a tighter gauge and just be really conscious of trying it on and adding stitches as I need to. But the other idea I had would be to just hold the Empire Estate with some Surrey alpaca. So I've got, so that's kind of what I was thinking, like if I did the Ontario and my Red Haven, that I would just hold the same color in Surrey alpaca. And by holding the strands double, that'll give me that kind of extra girth, so to speak, and that'll give me that worsted weight. So that way I can use the recommended needle size and get the fabric density that I would prefer and a lot more structure, and not necessarily get like an open gauzy fabric and have to remath things. So yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. So let's get into Rhinebeck projects. So let's talk about my weekend in Rhinebeck. So Rhinebeck is a little town in the Hudson Valley of New York State, and it is the town that hosts the annual New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. A lot of people just call the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival Rhinebeck, and I feel like Rhinebeck has just come to encompass the entire weekend of fiber-related activities. And I say that because the weekend has grown to be so much more than just a New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. There are now pre-events. So there's 2 events in particular that I attended, and then I learned of other events while I was down there as well that I didn't have tickets to. So maybe for next year, I'll try to get tickets for different events. So there's pre-events that are the Friday before. So I went to Cakepalooza and Untangled. And so they are events that you need tickets for. They sell like time tickets. You have to not only buy your tickets, but figure out like which time slot you want to shop at. So it does take a little bit of coordinating with like friends and whatnot, if you wanted to shop with a particular group of people. But having the time ticket is nice because it really helps to spread the crowd out throughout the day, because otherwise I think it can get quite chaotic during those kind of peak times. So for me, I wanted to make an entire weekend of the Rhinebeck event. So I drove down on Thursday. I rented a house with a bunch of friends in Saugerties, which is just another town very close to Rhinebeck, so it was easy for us to drive to the New York State Sheep and Wool Festival. But Saugerties happened to be the town where the 2 side events were hosted on Friday, so that way we could very easily go to those events. So we were actually able to walk to the yarn store that we wanted to go to that was hosting a trunk show for Emma's Yarn. And then we were able to walk to Cakepalooza, and then we did hop in our car to drive to Untangled, because that was, it actually wasn't too far. It was probably only like 2 miles, but you know, we had some shopping to do and we were tired by that point, so we did hop in our car and drive. Yeah, so let's dive in. So I definitely picked up lots of goodies, and like I said, you know, this isn't just like a haul, look what I bought. I definitely want to highlight some of these makers. These are makers that I admire. These are makers that I think are just exceptional, that I definitely kind of fangirl over. And so these are makers that I wanted to support, and I needed their stuff. And very importantly, I wanted to share what I am going to hopefully, because I can always change my mind, right? But I wanted to share hopefully what my plans are over the next year to do with all of these things, to again maybe keep me a little accountable, so that all these treasures don't just sit and linger in my stash. So without further ado, let's dive in. So our very first stop was the Perfect Blend Yarn and Tea Shop. It is this super cute, quaint yarn and tea shop that's located right in the village of Saugerties. If you're ever in the area, definitely check it out. It was a little chaotic just for how many people were in the shop because of all the events going on. So honestly, it was a little difficult to try to navigate the store and spend the time to, really browse and shop like you would normally do in a yarn store. I feel like, it's kind of something that you like to do slowly and quietly, and this was chaos. There was probably like 100 people in this tiny pack store, but beautiful store. So originally I kind of just did a quick lap, and I was just standing by the doorway waiting for my housemates to finish up looking at what they wanted to look at. And so I wasn't going to purchase anything, just kind of wanted to get out of the crowd. But then I happened to see this sample that was on this mannequin, and I don't even know what the sweater pattern was. It didn't have a tag on it, but the fabric that it was made of was, it caught my eye. It drew me in. I needed to inspect this. It looked like tweed cotton candy. It was so unique. I just thought it was I loved it. So I definitely needed to, figure out what that was made of. So, so essentially what it was is it was knit using 3 strands held together. 1 strand of this Make It tweed thread from Creative. I've honestly never heard of this brand, made in Italy. I don't know, but it's just a tweed thread. I mean, you can see like that's thread. This is definitely not yarn. It says tweed thread. So printer. I think my printer's okay. I have not used my printer today, so I think it's possessed by a demon. So anyway, where was I? Yes. So the garment was knit by holding 3 strands. 1 strand of this thread that has this like rainbow tweed, and it was held then also using 2 strands of a mohair lace, and it just had this beautiful gauzy ethereal like tweed cotton candy, light as a feather, so pretty. So yeah, so that was definitely like literally on my way out the door, and I was like, what? So I picked up a couple of these because I just again thought that I hadn't seen anything like it, and I thought it was so unique. Okay, the printer goes off, and then I randomly sneeze. Do you think there's a ghost about? It is Halloween week. Okay, I'll probably cut that out. Anyway, this story's going off the rails. So yeah, so this is all I got. So this is all I got at A Perfect Blend was this Make It Tweed, but I was very excited about it. Like I said, I did not know what the actual sweater pattern was, but I wasn't worried about it because I figured that really any basic sweater pullover that was written for a DK weight fabric, that's what I was going to do, and and it was going to be made of this awesome fabric. So yeah, so I had this project percolating in my mind, super excited because this has a lot of yardage or meterage. So each one of these is 445 meters. I always forget the meters to yards conversion, but that's definitely quite a bit. And I actually got 3 of these as a just in case, and they're pretty cheap. They're only $8. So I figured, why hem and haw over, should I get 2? Should I get 3? I figured $8 was inexpensive enough to not need to play any kind of yarn chicken. So I did get 3, and then, I can add it to hats, mittens, all the things. I have this tweed thread that's going to go in everything because I have thousands of yards of it now. Yes. So after that, we walked over to Cakepalooza. Cakepalooza is an event that's put on by, I think it's Cake Wool Company. They're a yarn company, and they put this event on essentially in the parking lot of their warehouse. So it's amazing what they do, because it's a small event that is huge at the same time. Small in space, but they packed like 20 vendors or so in there, and they did a really good job with the time tickets that that it wasn't like huge area. It's a big parking lot, but it's not that big by any means. It's just a warehouse parking lot. And so they definitely did a good job with controlling how many tickets they sold, that it felt packed, but it never felt like the crowd was out of control or that I couldn't get into booths or couldn't shop. So I definitely had plenty of time to appropriately chat, shop, and kind of slowly make my way throughout the whole event. For your time ticket, I had 2 hours, and it was nice too that it not being a spatially huge event. It's nice that in that 2 hours you really can get through the whole thing. Sometimes when the events take up such a large physical space, just the amount of time it takes to walk from one end to the other, you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 2 hours and all I've done is walk. So in a weird way, I appreciated like how small the event was, because I don't know if I'm explaining this really well, but everything was there. Like they had every kind of vendor, project bags, really unique jewelry, handmade soaps and lotions, lots of hand-dyed yarn, hand-dyed fiber, hand-spun yarn, desserts. So it was a very, very good show. So it's one that I would definitely recommend getting tickets for next year if you're looking to plan your Rhinebeck weekend. So there was definitely a couple, 2 vendors that I knew that I wanted to see, and one because they're just amazing. But so because I had picked up this tweed, I knew a friend of mine who had just posted that they were debuting their DK weight Surrey alpaca at Cakepalooza. And so that was in my mind when I was like, oh, 2 strands of mohair lace. Well, what if I just got 1 DK weight, and then I don't have to hold 2 strands. It's just 1 strand. So it'll be a lot more easier to manage, that I'll just have to hold the 2 together instead of trying to juggle 3. So yeah, basically I went for a beeline to the Cape May Fiber Co booth. Her colors are just absolutely amazing. They're usually all very ocean, sea inspired, and you can definitely see it in this colorway, Saltwater Taffy. I had such a hard time picking colors. There was 3 that I was like, like they're all so good. But I had to remind myself, there's always online shopping and you can only knit so much in a year. And I'm going back next year. So, I can't get 5 years worth, because then what's the point, right? So I ended up going with these 2 because I thought that they matched really well, but wouldn't take away from the tweed. So I was very happy to have found that. It's so soft. Oh my goodness. So yeah, so this is Surrey Silk Chonk. It is 90% Surrey alpaca, 10% mulberry silk. So 246 yards per 100 grams. It's so nice. So very excited. This is probably going to be the first Rhinebeck project that I do cast on, because I just thought it was so unique. And so for projects, did I not even put it on my list? I have notes here, and I didn't even put it on my list for what I had found. But I'm pretty sure. Oh my goodness. You make notes and then you don't even print out the right notes page. Anyway, so I'm pretty sure that it was a petite knits pattern, but it was just essentially a basic pullover. Like, you know, there was nothing to it. It was just, you know, raglan, DK weight pullover. Anyway, it's gonna bother me, but that's fine. So I did actually make a favorites gallery or bundle in Ravelry, and I will link that into the show notes, because I wanted to keep myself organized with the projects that I had planned specifically from my 2024 Rhinebeck purchases, and then that way I could kind of keep track of, like, you know, am I using up my purchases, and not necessarily that I have to like make those things, but just as a way to kind of keep myself accountable and remember, like, oh yeah, I was gonna make that with that. And so then that way, like, you know, if I end up using the yarn for something else, totally fine. But like, I just don't want it to like be where I can't remember why I bought the yarn and what I was going to do for it. So I do have that favorites bundle. So I'm pretty sure that I have linked that pattern that I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was a petite knits pattern, because I feel like that petite knits is really great for if you just want like your kind of basic capsule wardrobe. I feel like her patterns are really great for that. Like, they generally, oh my gosh, I was gonna say they're no frills, and I'm pretty sure it's literally the no frills sweater, because that's usually like what the patterns are. They're basic wardrobe staple pieces. And so because of that, it's going to have this magnificent fabric that's just going to carry the show. Okay, so I've been talking about this for way too long. Let's move on. So the next booth that I wanted to go to is a longtime favorite of mine, especially for spinning fiber, is Green Goat Ranch. There is their logo. Yeah, so Green Goat Ranch. So I ended up actually getting two. So I love that one of the things that I really appreciate about Sara is that she is a master at bundling everything up into plying pairs. So a lot of times, instead of just having to, you know, purchase your own giant braid and then trying to figure out, oh, what am I going to ply this with? She is so good about creating color combinations for you and then bundling them up together. And I really appreciate that you have the choice of, like, you can still get, you know, the full size braid if you want, but then she also has just like the 4-ounce pack. So you can get your 2 colors, your 2 ply pairs, but it's still just like buying one braid. And especially at not just like a fiber festival, but a crazy fiber weekend, such as Rhinebeck weekend and Cakepalooza, when you start getting like super overwhelmed and decision fatigue, just having something that's already put together and easy, like, I can't tell you how wonderful it is to just kind of already have something that is wonderfully packaged and curated for you. So all I had to do was just pick which colors I wanted, and they were already wonderfully bundled together. So I ended up going with, this is Rambouillet, and it's called Flower and Garden Honey Mascarpone Cheesecake. So I loved how it's like a peach and yellow with like a maroony magenta. It's gonna look really pretty. And then this one's probably my favorite because it has sparkle. This is from the Bridgerton collection, and it's Edwina. This is merino wool, and it's viscose and stellina. So I love how just one of them has the stellina in it. So that way, like, it won't be so crazy sparkly, if that makes sense. because just one of the plies will have the sparkle. So it'll kind of, I like this subtle sparkle. And so it's going to be really pretty. And I always have to laugh how I always end up choosing colors that are just very similar. But, so super excited to spin these up. I usually don't get very fancy with my spinning, so I'll spin them up. I feel like I always aim, you know, I aim for consistency rather than a certain gauge of yarn. So generally what comes out is anywhere between a sport and a worsted, and as long as I can get consistency, I'm happy. And then I usually do either a 2-ply or a 3-ply. If it seems like it's really lumpy and bumpy, I'll do a 3-ply to kind of help even things out. But with these, I'm going to hope to just be able to do a 2-ply since they're already set up to do ply pairs. So I did get a couple other things from the Cape May booth. That I wanted to look at this bag. So Vanessa gave me this wonderful bag with my purchase. Absolutely obsessed. I love a good bag, and especially a good rainbow shiny bag. And I have to say too, I actually really like how it's a little bit see-through so that you can see and remember what projects are inside, because sometimes like things get lost. And then the other thing that I got, and it was such a wonderful gift, was this skein, and it is baby llama, and it was naturally dyed with mulberry. And look at how beautiful this is. It is so soft. I don't know if you can see that it's got this incredible halo. So I actually have no idea what I'm going to do with this, because it was a wonderful surprise, but it is absolutely gorgeous. So I definitely want to make something very special with it. And yes, so I'm still trying to figure that out. And I feel like it's always hard, you know, when you just have the one skein. So if anybody has ideas, like, do you have a go-to special project for the one skein? And especially when it is more of a luxury fiber like the baby llama. So it's not like, you know, I can just make socks. I thought of maybe like fingerless gloves. But even that, I'm worried about them getting a little too beat up. Potentially a cowl because it is so soft. The other thing I thought of was mixing it with, I have some single ply yak that is just the natural undyed gray that I've been holding on to. I'd gotten it as like a dyer sample, and it is absolutely divine. And I just had it for a while, and I was actually thinking like it might be stunning to mix these two together as maybe some sort of like t-shirt or tank top, and this could be like the color part. So I don't have a specific project yet, but I definitely have ideas cooking. So hopefully soon I will commit to a decision and add those notes to my Ravelry queue. So definitely wasn't my last stop. I visited so many wonderful booths. But my last purchase at Cake is from Fantastic Farm. There is their tag. So I always love to support the farmers, the producers as much as I can. You know, they're the backbone of our community, of all of this. So this was kind of one of those surprise stops. I'd actually never heard of this vendor before. And I was so glad that I wandered into their booth and struck up a conversation. You know, we just had such a wonderful conversation. You know, told me a lot about her sheep and whatnot. She did have a bunch of fiber in her booth, some beautiful bats, but honestly, it was these hand spun skeins that just really struck my eye, especially this one. I think it was this one that I was just staring at for so long because it's just, this is single ply too. And it just has these just beautiful areas of color, and I just couldn't stop staring at it. And I was like, oh, damn, I have to have it. And I didn't want to just get one because I'm like, what am I going to do with just one of this super unique yarn? So I got two, you know, double the trouble here. And so this is like a very deep teal. It doesn't have as much variation, but it's really pretty. I loved the color. You know, I love teal. And together I thought that they matched like each other. Like they contrasted enough that if I use them together like as a stripe or something, that you'll still see each individual color, but they match very well. So these are, I believe they're both the same. Yep. So it's hand spun Coopworth. I've never heard of Coopworth, so I might have to like look that up. But it sounds like it is a long wool according to the little information that's on the tag. 232 yards. This one's 240 yards. It looks like it is probably like a sport weight, maybe a DK. I'm not sure. But absolutely wonderful. It definitely has a bit of a toothy hand to it. So it is something that like I could potentially work up into a cowl, but I think I would have to be careful about you know, it being on my neck. It's definitely toothy, but it might actually be wonderful for a set of mitts because I do think that they would hold up really well, even considering that it is a single ply. So again, I do not have a project for this one either. I've been hitting up Ravelry quite a bit, and I've not landed on anything that like blew me away for what to use for this. So unfortunately, I think this one is going to sit without a specific project in mind. But I was a little excited because when I brought this home and started putting it away, I remembered that I had these two skeins that have been kind of languishing in my stash for quite a while now. I want to say like 3 or 4 years now. And the hand on these feels so similar. And this is also sport weight. This looks a lot thinner, so maybe this is more like a DK. But so this is just 100% Canadian wool. And let me tell you, this has tooth to it. Like this is toothy wool. And so I got these two skeins, I believe in like a subscription box, and loved the color. And it came with a pattern. It came with like a shawl pattern. And I had started to knit the shawl pattern. And I just didn't think that the shawl pattern was really, my hair is like all over this. I just didn't really think that the shawl pattern was very appropriate for this yarn. Because this yarn is so toothy and stiff. The shawl was just, had no gift to it. It was just this box of firm fabric, and I was like, I'm never gonna put this around my neck ever. It's just not ever gonna happen. So as part of Frog It or Finish It, I frogged it, and this is such good yarn that, you know, I definitely want to use it for something. And so now I'm thinking that like maybe with the 4 I might be able to find a use for it. But yeah, it's definitely, like I said, it's definitely got a tooth. So it's got to be some sort of outer garment or like a hat that has like even a liner in it. Or I think actually gloves would work really well. But then I even worry about gloves that come up here. I mean, it's toothy. So anyway, so this might just sit for a little bit until I figure out what to do with it. But it's so beautiful. Yeah, so after that, we walked back to our Airbnb, to grab a vehicle so that we could head over to Indie Untangled. So Indie Untangled is another event where it's a timed event. You have to purchase your ticket ahead of time for your time, and you also have 2 hours. This event is huge. It is physically huge. It takes place at like a horse performance arena. So there's these just huge, I don't know, dirt areas where rings where horses do their thing. There's barns and like pavilions. So the vendors are set up in these long covered pavilions. And then there was like one tent as well that had vendors. I'm not sure specifically how many vendors were there. It felt like maybe 30 or so. So there was definitely more vendors, a lot more physical space. So you're going to spend a lot more time walking. I will say one of the things that Indie does so well is that they do have a pretty good little transit system in the form of golf carts. So constantly these carts were buzzing back and forth between all the tents. So you did not have to wait very long if you wanted to ride, and they were giving people rides between all of the tents. So from an accessibility standpoint, or even if your feet were just done, because let me tell you, my feet were done. We had actually not gotten to Cakepalooza until I think like 1 or 2 o'clock. And so we had spent the entire morning in the village of Socrates walking and shopping, which in hindsight, we probably should have, bumped around a little bit. Because by the time that we got to Indie Untangled, I was so tired. I was so shopped out. I really just wanted to sit down. So I was very appreciative of these golf carts that did kind of take you from place to place. But because of just how physically huge it is, you definitely do not want to be wasting your time. Your 2 hours is precious because you have a lot to see. There's more vendors, and it's going to take you longer to get to each of the tents. There was 3, if I'm remembering correctly. There was like 1 large tent of vendors, and then 2 of those like pavilion barn style type areas with vendors. So especially too, if like you saw something and then you wanted to go back for it, it's just going to take time. They had a really wonderful area to like sit and knit and get food as well. And I believe if you wanted to hang out in the food area, that you could, and they weren't going to like kick you out of that area once your ticket expired. I think you just can't go into the shopping areas once your ticket expired, just to, again, crowd control. So that way everyone has their time to shop without being overwhelmed and crowded. So definitely, like, for next year, if you're planning to go, which I do recommend, like, do all your shopping, make sure that like you've done everything you need to do, you've seen everything you need to see, and then, do your food and stuff afterwards, because then you just don't want your ticket to run out and you can't get back in. If you begged, I bet they'd let you in, but technically you can't. So yes, also doing the 2 events, like I said, we had shopped all day in the village, not all day, I don't know, 3 hours or so. We, went through a bunch of the shops, which was wonderful. The village is so cute. And so I recommend doing that. I recommend spending a day in town and actually like visiting the town, like you would if you were on vacation. So it just made for a very long day to do a town day plus the 2 events. I wanted to experience all of it, so I have no regrets about going to the 2 events. But for next year, I do think that I would enjoy it a little bit better if I just picked one to kind of focus on and only go to one. Because, like I said, by the time I got to Indie, I was a bit beat and just not really like into shopping anymore. And I feel like, there was a lot of things that like I, just kind of missed and didn't really like see, so to speak, because I was just kind of like, I'm tired. So, you just kind of end up like walking by things. And then as I was like watching other people's videos, I was like, wait, I never saw that. And because I just walked by it because I was hungry, So anyway, but I did get something. I definitely wanted to stop at Why Not Fibers. Kat is such an inspiration for me. So her booth was a must stop on my list. So Why Not Fibers is out of Traverse City, Michigan, and she uses all U.S. wools, and I believe that she tries to get as much close to home wool as well. So she will source wool directly from farmers, have it spun into the most amazing bases. She's a Wonder Woman with her wool. It's amazing. And like I said, she's such an inspiration to me, in terms of like what I'm trying to do with my New York State wool project. And she's doing it and doing it so well in Michigan with, creating those connections with the fiber producers and the mills and creating just amazing yarn. I mean, this yarn is so soft. The spin on it is so unique. It's springy, and the color, loved it. So I saw this color, like I couldn't stop looking at it. Like, what happens, we're having our conversation, we're catching up, and I'm just like, so yes, so this color came home with me. This is on her Spark base. The colorway is called Eddie. And I thought it would be really fun to pair it together with some of my New York State yarn. This is actually the first batch of my New York State yarn. This is Ellis. I don't have very much of Ellis left. This was the very first New York State spin that I did. So this is it's like a heavy lace weight, light fingering. It's so nice. This one actually also has a little bit of fin wool in it that gives it like a very unique texture and so much memory. Obsessed with this wool. So I thought it would be really fun to pair together, because this is fingering weight as well. So I thought it would be really fun to pair together some of the New York State wool with my New York State wool project with the Michigan wool. So I picked two colors from my stash of New York State wool. So this is Limelight and this is Sea Breeze. And this is going to be a striped t-shirt that is going to be amazing. Absolutely amazing. This is probably after my Tweety thing. This is definitely going to be up next because it's going to be so pretty. Absolutely love it. And definitely want to get it. I feel like the timing will be perfect because I think it would be such a great thing to have like for the springtime, like a t-shirt and all these beautiful spring greens. So very excited for that. So that's all I got at Indie. But yeah. But then there was Rhinebeck. Okay, so now we've finally made it to Rhinebeck. I apologize. I feel like this video is going to end up being so long, which is fine. If it's too long, just shout it off, come back later. I was planning on sharing some works in progress, and I actually have another finished object from the project that I was working on while I was at Rhinebeck, but I think I'm going to save those for another video because we still have plenty to talk about here. So let's dive in. Rhinebeck. Rhinebeck is a wild event. So it takes place at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds. Huge event. I mean, fairgrounds are huge. Plan to spend so much time walking, talking, just being in awe of the sweaters and the outfits going by. There's animals to pet and see. There's equipment auctions and the fleece sale, and There are classes if you wanted to take classes. They fill up so fast. I don't even know when they go on sale, but I've only ever seen them being sold out. Yeah, so it's just this incredible event. And like I said, the weather was like out of a movie set this year. It was 70 and sunny with like just this slight breeze. So it definitely brought out a lot more people this year than I've ever seen in years past. I think if you were within any kind of driving distance at all, like I know people who drove up same day that were like 4 hours away, and they were like, nope, we're coming. Because it was so perfect. So why would you just not hop in the car and do it? So it was packed. So if you are not necessarily a crowd person, Saturday was very overwhelming. And because of that, I was so grateful for the weather. So where the vendors are like these series of barns and pavilions that they're basically mostly inside. There are a couple vendors that are outside and like pop-up tents and trailers and stuff. But I would say like 90% of the vendors, except for food people, are inside these barn and pavilion type spaces. And because of the crowds, it made shopping and trying to get into booths virtually impossible. So I attempted to get into a couple booths and on Saturday, and it just quickly became a losing battle. And I was like, this is just not going to happen. So and that's fine. Totally fine. So I chose to use Saturday as my social day, hung out on the hill, which is this wonderful grassy area that is tree covered. So you have some nice shade. If you're smart, you can bring a blanket. I had left my blanket in the car, so I didn't have it, but you can bring a blanket to sit on. People bring chairs. And people have different meetups. I did have kind of a meetup planned. It was very informal. I had sent out an email to my newsletter subscribers, and I'd also mentioned on Instagram that if you saw me, I was going to be passing out mini skeins. And so thank you so much to everybody who actually tapped me on the shoulder and asked me for a mini skein. That was so much fun. I had so much fun passing those out. I passed out, I think, over 75 mini skeins. They were my Autumn in New York colorway. And so that was just a lot of fun. So I was kind of wandering around and then people would come and be like, am I supposed to ask you for a mini skein? And then it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed that. I think for next year, I think I'll do it more formally, where I will not forget my blanket in the car. Hopefully the weather is nice again, that we can kind of sit and have like a set time and maybe do like a little sit and knit on the hill kind of a thing instead of just wandering around. But it was so wonderful. And so because the weather was so nice, I basically could spend the entire day outside and either on the hill. I also found like a really nice picnic area table. So I could sit, I could feast on all of the wonderful food and knit and socialize with so many people that are from literally all over the world that, you only get to see 1-2 times a year at events like this. So Saturday was as magical as it was overwhelming. Sunday is for shopping. At least for me it was. So Sunday, the crowds were definitely a lot better. Because the weather was so beautiful, I think Sunday was still amazingly crowded. I think Sunday this year was as crowded as Saturday last year, and Saturday was cold, nasty, and raining. So, so Sunday was still very crowded, but it was way more manageable. So I was able to finally get into some of the booths and do some shopping. And so here is my haul from that. Actually, the one thing I did get on Saturday, because this was actually the one booth that I kind of accidentally got into I got pushed into it, and it ended up being wonderful. And after I got the book, that's when I promptly walked out of that pavilion and said, I'm done with being an indoor cat. I'm going to go outside. So this is Victorian Housecats to Knit by Sara Elizabeth Kellner. Amazing. You just buy the book right now is all I'm going to say. So on Saturday, I did want to check out the fleece sale. It's something that, was just on my to-do list. I wanted to just really touch all the fleeces and examine all the differences, and I did not end up coming home with a fleece. I found like the decision a little too overwhelming, and honestly, I just don't have the time to wash and prep an entire fleece. Just between I work a full-time job, and then all the yarn dyeing and all the knitting and all the spinning and all the other crafting I want to do. While it is a project that I also really passionately want to do, in reality, I don't have the time for it. So I went and I touched all the fleeces, and I had a really great time kind of being a part of the fleece sale, but I did not pick a fleece to take home. And I knew I probably was not going to, unless one somehow bawed to me, right? So while I was exiting the fleece sale, I had to walk by, it's like the Merit, I think they call it like the Merit bookstore, but it's just like the area that's set up by Merit Books. And it is set up in this way that has like unidirectional flow. So like you walk up one aisle and then down another aisle. And it's a really neat area. It's an area that you definitely need to put on your list. They have so many wonderful books. I feel like books that you don't necessarily find a lot online. And the really cool part about it is that so many of the authors, including this author, so many of the authors are there and they're signing. So so it's your opportunity to meet the designers, the authors, that you've been following, knitting their patterns. You can meet them and chat with them, get your book signed. And that's just such a neat experience. And so they have all different times, and, you can keep walking through and meet as many people as you want. And it's really cool. But because of that, it's a very busy, crowded area. So I'm just kind of wandering through, and I don't know what I was doing. Just kind of stopped. I was that person that just really wasn't paying attention, and I just kind of stopped like in the way to the entrance, and I was trying to figure out like what to do next, where to go, and I'm looking around, and I didn't really realize that all of a sudden the crowd is like pushing me into this booth. So all of a sudden I'm in the booth, and I can't get out of the booth because, like I said, it had this like unidirectional flow, and it's so crowded in there. I mean, it is packed, like literally shoulder to shoulder packed. So you literally just had to kind of follow the crowd and just stay in this sea of people that you hope would just spit you out on the other end. And which is fine. And so I was, browsing the books. I'm like, I'm here for it. We'll look at the books. And so that's when I saw all these super cute knitted cats. And I had seen them before at Vogue Knitting in January. The author had an entire booth that was set up like a diorama of a Victorian living room. It was the absolute best booth that I've ever seen before and since. It was fun. It was soothing. And the cats are so like lifelike. Let me see if I wonder if there's like, trying to see if there's like a picture page that doesn't have like pattern on it. Oh my gosh, this one has pattern on it, but like, I'm like block some of it. Look at that. Like, they're just so cute. So all these cats have like different poses. And anyway, so I was already familiar with the cat book, and so the point of the booth in Vogue in January was to advertise that she had this book release that was coming out soon. And so I had no idea that soon was now. And so I was so glad that I happened upon it. So I definitely snapped up the book and was really excited about it. And so now I definitely need to start knitting some of these cats. I like how they all have like different names. And I feel like for next year, so this year I'm currently hosting the Frog It or Finish It. It's been a year-long make-along where you go through your projects and your languishing whips and decide if you're going to finish it or frog it. And there's still 2 months left of this challenge, so get on it. We're giving away prizes just for finishing projects or ripping out those projects that no longer give you joy. But it doesn't end at the end of the year, so I'm starting to think about next year. And I really want to do like a cat-along. Like, look at this. It's just so cute. Okay. So definitely got that, and I will be knitting a cat before Rhinebeck next year. That is an absolute must. This is actually another purchase inspired from Vogue. This vendor, hello Bargello. This was a vendor that I actually saw at Vogue in New York City this past January as well. Their booth was set up so well. It was just vibrant, bright color. It was so happy. You'd walk by it and you get pulled in by these colors. And I'd actually like never really heard of Bargello before. Like I didn't realize that it was different than like plastic canvas, but I guess it is different. I guess Bargello is its own thing. And to all you people who already knew that and you're probably screaming at me like, I didn't know. So anyway, so Bargello, I guess it's its own craft. And yeah, so I didn't end up getting anything at Vogue. I kept walking by the booth and there were projects that I thought were amazing, but like so much sold out at Vogue that kind of by the time where I was like, okay, I think I want something, everything was gone. Or at least everything that like I wanted was sold out. So when I walked by their booth at Sheep and Wool, fortunately they still had lots of good stuff. I will say so much of their stuff was sold out again, but at least maybe they had more inventory this time, so they had lots of good stuff. So I bought this purse kit that comes with these like very jewel toned rainbow colors, which as you know are very much my vibe. So this is the purse. I've never done this before, and so of course I picked, an intermediate advanced project for my very first project. But I don't know. The booth attendant assured me that it's the type of craft that you can pick up fairly quickly, fairly easily, that it's not that difficult, and that if I was already knitting a colorwork sweater, that I should be able to pick this up very quickly. So if that's not true, I'm coming for you. But I'm excited for that, and I'm really excited to have this handbag for Rhinebeck next year that my cat will be in. That would be so cute, right? Okay, so what was next? This was one that I had seen, I think, on Instagram that I was definitely very intrigued with. So, as a dyer, I'm always looking for the unique, the different, the things that, I can't necessarily source myself or dye myself. So, things that are milled specifically for a certain company, I'm usually very interested in, and especially breed specific products, US specific products. So I had seen that Primrose Yarn Company, this is their, beautiful, I love their label, the artwork on the label. So Primrose Yarn Company, they have this Homestead Sport, and it's 100% American superwash merino, but it's locally mill spun. So I like that that it's mill spun just for them, and it's got that very fun where the wool is dyed first before it is spun, so you get that really cool barber pole effect that is really unique. Like it's like kind of like that hand spun effect, because normally you only get that with hand spun yarn. And so I love now that mills are starting to kind of mix the fibers together, dyed fibers together before they're spinning it, to get some really fun effects like this, so that they look hand spun but have a much more even hand to them. And I also love that it's American wool as well. So I just thought, you know, this ticked the boxes. Super unique, super different, and it's supporting American wool. So I fell in love with these colors. These are actually two different colors. They look very similar. This is Bad Karma. No, they are the same color. They are both Bad Karma, but I picked them because they looked so different. And I liked them both. So, yeah. So these are, what are these? These are sport weight. So the next booth that I went to was definitely on my list, was Wing and a Prayer Farm. They are out of Shaftesbury, Vermont. Tammy is another vendor that I admire so very much. She is a wool producer. She has her own flock of sheep in Vermont. I highly recommend not only following her on Instagram, but joining her Patreon, because it directly supports her mission in terms of supporting the wool industry and her farm, just the work that she's doing for natural dyeing, farming, her breeding, of bringing over embryos and whatnot from Europe to do this unique breeding program that she's doing. She's doing amazing things. She's just one of those women in the industry that I admire so very much. So yeah, totally. I always fangirl over her. Recently, this past spring, she gave a talk at a local-ish event near me. So it was like an hour away. So I was like, yep, I'm absolutely going to go down. And it was so wonderful to actually get to hear her speak. And then I took a natural yarn dyeing class from her, and that was incredible. So much fun. And I love how she shares her gift. Yes. So all that aside, definitely wanted to pick up some of her yarn, because this is from her flock. She does only natural dyeing, and she grows as much of the ingredients as she can in her own garden in Vermont. And so I love that she tries to source from the land as much as she absolutely can. And then obviously ingredients that cannot grow in Vermont, she has to source from other regions. And then all the wool is from her own flock as well. So yes, loved it. So I picked up two different things. This one was the color just absolutely called out to me. I can't walk by a magenta without picking it up. This is her Thelma and Louise line. It is 50% Cotswold plus Cormo and 50% alpaca. And it is a DK weight. It's definitely like a little bit toothier, but it's so soft. Like, it's nice. You can tell like it's got like just a slight halo with that alpaca, but it's like, I like how it's a nice sturdy yarn, but like it's not like that other hand spun that I had where it's almost like too toothy. Like this is the right amount. Like it's not irritating. Like it's got that hand where you're going to enjoy knitting on it so much. But because I like a very textural experience. And I think that's why I like knitting with BFL yarn so much, because like you really feel the stitches. But then it's, is it buttery soft merino wool? No, but it's not scratchy either. So I really like this. And I loved, I already had this yarn and I liked how it kind of all went together. So this is definitely going to be, I probably have way more yarn here than just one hat. So this is Definitely going to be a hat. And if I can potentially even get 2 hats out of it, maybe I'll gift one out. Yes. And so again, I'm forgetting the hat that I picked. There was 2 hats. There was like an autumn, I believe it was like a Caitlin Hunter pattern that was like autumn something, which is a really pretty like kind of floral color work motif. And then I think it was Miss Babs collaborated with a designer as well and had like a 4 Rhinebeck pattern that was really pretty, that had like little miniature flowers all over the hat. Another option is to just pick a motif out of the Doodle directory book. Because the nice thing about the Doodle directory is that it gives you like a blank canvas for like basics like cowls, hats, and then you just insert your doodle into it. So I might just do that as well, but definitely these are going to be hats. I think it'd be fun for gifts and whatnot. And then the other thing that I got was this. So this is soft. This is buttery soft. This is from Peter Pan and Fam. This is 100% Cormo fingering weight. This is from our flock of Cormo sheep. And I love how like she even lists Peter Pan, Martha, Miles, Mitchell, Michael, Moses, Mary, Bonnie, Bluma, and Birch. So soft. Like so soft. So I got enough skeins to make, how much yardage is this? These are 250 yards each. So I got enough skeins to make, depending on the pattern, it would be nice if I could get a full pullover out of it. But if I had to make like a t-shirt, that would be fine as well. And I wanted to credit a friend, Rachel, that I saw, who was wearing a stunning colorwork sweater. And it was this very low contrast vibe sweater that I was instantly obsessed with. And I kind of wanted, that's what inspired me to pick these colors that were very close. The one is like, it's blue, and the other one's like a green, but they're very close. Like they're the same shade essentially. So I really liked how low contrast they were. And I haven't decided if I'm going to truly do color work, like low contrast color work, or potentially just like a striped tee, to just kind of have that same low contrast color work effect, but just with stripes. But yeah, so these are so soft, so good. Very excited about that. Whew, on to the home stretch. So the last bit that I got was spinning fiber. Spinning fiber was definitely on my shopping list. I feel like what Rhinebeck is amazing for is for spinners. I feel like spinning fever was alive at Rhinebeck this year. So many people were like, I want to get a drop spindle. I want to get a wheel. I want to learn to spin. There's so much good fiber there, full fleeces, roving, bats, and you just were really feeling how like suddenly everybody wanted to be a spinner, and there was so much good fiber to be had. I just love bright colors, and that's kind of what I went for, and I definitely wanted to try different things. I love trying different breeds of wool, different breeds of sheep. I really like to explore how the different fibers are different, how differently they spin, and then, how differently the yarn is. So this is my first time purchasing from Into the Whirled, but I've heard very good things about them. I feel like this is a company that pops up a lot in other people's videos. And it's been highly recommended to me as well. So I definitely wanted to check out their booth. It was super packed, super busy. So definitely a testament that people love them. And I picked 3 different not just only 3 different colors, but 3 different fibers. So one is Kent Romney, one is Gray Corydal, and the other is Falkland. So the Falkland is magically. I love, like, I'm obsessed with like the little pops of peach in there, and I feel like they're going to come out really well in the spin. The Gray Corydal is Herding Cats. I love like the moody tones in there. It's probably hard to see in the bag. I've got a light that I think is just shining out the bag, but and then Kent Romney is God's Wood. See that. So this one, it's very similar to Herding Cats, but this one has a lot more like yellows and oranges, and this one's a little bit more kind of reddish and blue. So very pretty. So again, I don't really like go usually, I usually don't get too complicated with my spinning. I'll probably just do like a fractal spin, and again, just try to be as consistent as I can. Kind of hope for that sport to decay, because I feel like that's the most, to me, that's like kind of the most versatile yarn. You can use it in so many patterns, and yeah, and it'll probably be a 2-ply as long as things don't get out of hand. So that'll be really exciting. And I also feel like, because they're the 3 different fibers, I'd love to spin them like back to back to back, so that I can really do like that full like breed study to really experience exactly how they're different or similar. So I'm excited to get into that. And then they're also different than the breeds that I got from Green Goat Ranch. So I can do a full breed study. Then this I think it was my last purchase. This is Shirsty Cat Designs. This is always on my go-to list. Kelly is such an amazing dyer. She's been in the industry for a while now, and her dyeing is absolutely incredible. Her yarn is amazing. Her fiber is amazing. I actually first got introduced to Shirsty Cat at a trunk show at a unfortunately now closed, but local to me, yarn store. And so I've been following her pretty much since I first learned to knit. So I feel like I've had this like kind of weird nostalgic attachment to Shirsty Cat in that way, because that yarn that I purchased at that trunk show, I then used in my very first knit project. So I purchased that to attend a knit along that was hosted in that same yarn store. And because of that knit along, that's how I learned to knit, because I was kind of struggling. You know, I'd knit a couple things. I was trying to just self-teach myself on YouTube. And, you know, and I'd knit like a really bad hat and a really bad scarf. But I was like, I think I just really need to sit down, you know, with a group of people and get some real hands-on help. And yeah, if you are struggling to get over the hump, join a knit along, an in-person knit along if you can. I know, you know, depending on where you're located and what's accessible to you, you cannot always do that. But that set me on my way. The rest is history. It was the Sea Spall Shawl by Stephen West. And so I feel like, because my first knit project was a giant Stephen West project, that's probably why I'm just obsessed with Stephen West projects, giant shawls, and Shirsty Cat. So then the Shirsty Cat being responsible for new projects continued. She usually vends at the Central New York Fiber Arts Festival. That's close-ish to me, in Central New York. I think it's usually in June. And that was the festival that, I believe it was in 2021. That is the festival that I bought my very first spinning wheel. And I had no idea what I was doing. I bought a spinning wheel. I was completely enabled by friends. And so I bought, you know, some kind of, not junk fiber, but, you know, cheaper bats and stuff to kind of get me on my way. But then I wanted to buy like some fiber, some nice special fiber to start spinning when I'd kind of figured it out. And that very special fiber that I'd purchased was Shirsty Cat fiber. So now I always feel like my Shirsty Cat fiber is my super special fiber. And it was a sparkle fiber. So of course I had to get another sparkle fiber because now I have this whole collection of sparkle hand spun. I've been pretty good about spinning my Shirsty Cat. I got two bumps, braids, whatever you want to call these, last year of sparkle, and they're all done. I feel like on a future video I'll have to do a little show and tell. At least I think they're all done. I might still have one bobbin that hasn't been plied, but I'm pretty sure I'm through them all. I should probably double check, but I know I've at least like worked on them. Anyway, whew. All right, I feel like this video is going on too long. I can feel my throat is ready to just be done with the talking. So I'm going to wrap this up. But yeah, so one is Polworth, 100% Polworth. And this beautiful sparkle rainbow is 70% merino, 30% rainbow nylon. Again, obsessed with this like very subtle sparkle glow that this one has. The Polworth doesn't have any sparkle in it, but I don't know, it's such a beautiful purple that I just loved it. And I thought it would be fun, again, going through this kind of breed study that I have set up for myself. I didn't have any Polworth in this collection of fiber that I have set up for myself. So yeah, so in terms of like projects set up for the fiber, for now it's really just getting it on the wheel and spinning it, because again I would really want to do that kind of breed study and get it running through my hands and just learning about what makes it special and what I like, what I don't like, and then I really feel like it's gonna take like seeing what the yarn looks like to then decide like what am I gonna do with it. I'm still just not as confident a spinner or as good a spinner. Admittedly, I just don't practice enough. I think I go through a lot of phases. I'll spin really consistently for like 3 months, and then I'll put the wheel down for like 6-9 months. So I definitely need to get better at, being a lot more consistent with my spinning so that I can actually spin for a project, because, spinning goals would be to buy fiber and be able to spin it with a sweater project in mind, because I think that would be so cool to be able to buy like a sweater quantity of fiber and be able to say, okay, I'm going to spin it to this gauge to be able to knit this specific sweater that I want to knit, instead of just kind of waiting to see how the yarn comes out after the wheel. But that's okay. The yarn always comes out so beautiful. That is the joy in hand spun yarn, is that even the most like lumpy bumpy weirdo things are still absolutely amazing, and they're just art yarn. So like I said, this video has been so long. I definitely need to go chug some water, but if you're still here, thank you so much for sticking with me. I hope that I've introduced you to some new vendors. I hope that you've learned a little bit about Rhinebeck and what it's all about. Were you at Rhinebeck? I'd love to know in the comments, and if you plan on going next year. And if you have any suggestions for some of the yarn that I'm still a little on the fence about what to do with, pop it in the comments. Yeah, because like I said, I definitely plan on not having this around in my stash for Rhinebeck next year, because we cannot keep just piling yarn on top of yarn on top of yarn. We got to use this. That's the point, right? Anyway, so have a wonderful rest of your day, and thank you so much for popping in.